nervous thing or just because I can't talk continuously without taking a break. So I'm gonna try my best to refilm this video without saying a million and one times, because whenever I was editing the last video that I had recorded of the same video, it was ridiculous. I'm not gonna be able to completely not say it. I'm gonna try and get better, but yeah, it's terrible. I will do my best. So, this video today, I haven't even introduced the video yet, and I'm rambling. This is a true crime case that I'm going to be doing. It is another unsolved mystery. This case I had discovered whenever I was researching the Peter Bergman case, and it is very, very similar circumstances. Someone had actually commented on that video about a spy theory, and this case is very, very similar. You're going to find out as I'm going along. There's so many different twists and turns to this story, and I just find it fascinating, so I wanted to share it with you. It is an unsolved mystery. I'm still going to put it as true crime because there is a lot around it where there is possible crime that has been committed, but it's more of a mystery than anything. So I'm going to start it off. It is the Tamam Shud case, also known as the Somerton man case, and it took place in Australia. So on December 1st, 1948, a man was found on Somerton Park Beach. Initially, two young boys, or two, I think they might have been teenage boys, possibly young men, had been riding horses along the beach, and they had originally passed the man sitting kind of slumped on the beach and assumed maybe he was there having a sleep, or he had maybe just come back from having a night on the town and had fallen asleep on the beach. But whenever they were riding back the opposite direction, they noticed that the man was still sitting in the same position, and I think they kind of got a little bit suspicious, and then realised that the man was dead. So this man, he was lying on his back, he had his head rested against a wall and his feet were crossed, which is why I think a lot of people who had witnessed the man being in this position had believed he may have been asleep. There were a number of different witnesses from the night before. One woman had actually said that she noticed a man sitting in the same spot, and she believed that it was the man that she had seen. He had just randomly, while he was sitting, raised his arm in the air and rapidly dropped it. So it was kind of a little bit of a strange movement to make. Another witness had noticed, so I haven't actually seen if this was ever looked into or if there was any more about it, but one of the witnesses had said that they had seen a man, a well-dressed man, carrying another man towards Somerton Park Beach the night before the deceased man was found. So whenever the man's body was found and his pockets were searched, there is a list of different items that were in his pocket, and they're all kind of relevant to the story, so I'm going to just read the list here to you. So there was an unused second-class rail ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, a bus ticket from the city that may not have been used, a US manufactured narrowed aluminium comb, a half-empty packet of juicy fruit chewing gum, an Army Club cigarette packet which contained 7 investigation went on, the pathologist carried out a report, and the description of the man, again I'm going to read it to you. So, he was 180 centimetres tall, or 5 foot 11 inches. He had grey eyes, fair to ginger coloured hair, slightly grey around the temples, broad shoulders and a narrow waist, hands and nails that showed no signs of manual labour, big and little toes that met with a wedge shape, like those of a dancer or someone who wore boots with pointed toes. He also had quite pronounced high calf muscles, consistent with people who regularly wore boots or shoes with high heels or performed ballet. So the man was quite well dressed. He was wearing a shirt and a tie. The tie I think it was red, white and blue. And he was also wearing quite a nice suit jacket. The tailoring on this jacket, they found, looked more to be the kind of tailoring that would have been done in America. So all of the labels on the man's clothes were also removed, similar to the Peter Bergman case. And the police had kind of, from all of this, they started to believe that he may have committed suicide because he had cut out all of his labels and just the circumstances of it. So whenever the autopsy was conducted, the pathologist had given a time of death of around 2 a.m. on the 1st of December. This would have meant that any time that the witnesses had seen the man the previous night, he would have been alive and could have been drunk or having seizures or that kind of thing. So the description by the pathologist of the man's body, his heart was of normal size and normal in every way. He had congestion in both of his kidneys and liver. There was a great excess of blood in the vessels of his liver, and his spleen was strikingly large, around 3 times the normal size. He also had acute gastric hemorrhage, so he had quite a lot of internal bleeding, although physically on the outside there was no evidence of any kind of attack or that he had been physically harmed. The doctor had found that the man was between 40 and 45 years old, and he had a very good fitness level. So the cause of death was actually put down to a heart failure, and because the man was physically so fit and healthy, they then presumed that he could have been poisoned, and that then led to the heart failure. So also the signs on the man's body of poisoning, his pupils were quite small and his spleen was enlarged. There was blood in the stomach, but there were no signs of actual poison in his blood. So they started to question if this could have then been. At the time, I think there had been quite a lot of different poisons because the war had just finished. I believe during the war certain types of poisons were used that couldn't be detected in autopsies, so they started to believe that this could have possibly been what had happened to the man. So time went on and there were no further leads. No one had come forward to say that they knew who the man was. So the police kind of just kept going through the motions and didn't have anything else that they could look into. But in January they started to look into any luggage that had been left behind in hotels and train stations. And on January the 14th of 1949, in Adelaide rail station, they had actually been made aware of a suitcase that had been left behind on the 30th of November the previous year. So the suitcase had been left and it hadn't been touched since. No one had been back to claim it, and one of the people that were working in the train station had kind of got a bit suspicious because it was around the area that the man had been travelling through. So the police were made aware of this. They went and had a look at the suitcase and its contents. On the inside of the suitcase there was quite a lot of sort of normal kind of items that you would assume a man would have while he was travelling. So there was a dressing gown, a felt pair of slippers, 4 pairs of underpants, pyjamas, shaving items, a light brown pair of trousers with sand in the cuffs, an electrician's screwdriver, a table knife cut down to a small or short sharp instrument, a pair of scissors with sharpened points, a small square of zinc thought to have been used as a protective sheath for the knife and scissors, and a stenciling brush, as used by third officers on merchant ships for stenciling cargo. There was also a card of thread by the brand Barber. It was an orange wax thread, and the type of thread was unusual to Australia, so they thought maybe could this man have been American, because the tailoring in his jacket, this thread was not the type of thread you would find in Australia anyway. The thread was also matched to the trousers that the man was wearing, and it was the same thread that had been used to repair the lining of the trousers he was wearing. All of the labels from the clothes in this suitcase had been removed, but a few, so I think there were either 3 or 4 items of clothing that still had the labels inside. All of them had the name T. Keane written on the inside. A couple of them had T. Keane with an E, and the other items had T. Keane without an E. So they then looked into this name. Was this somebody that was missing? Could they finally be able to find out who this man was? But on further investigation of the name, there was no one anywhere under the name T. Keane noted to be missing around the same kind of age that this man would have been. So throughout all of these investigations there were theories that the man could have maybe been a spy, and that he could have maybe left the name T. Keane in the items of clothing just to throw the police off of who he actually was. Shortly after this, a pathology professor named John Burton Cleland actually looked at all of the evidence to try and come up with his own conclusion of what may have happened, because there was no vomit on the clothes, there was no vomit nearby. The professor believed that this man had been poisoned at a different location and brought to the area where he had actually died and had been left. So this could link in to the witness who had seen a man being carried to Somerton Park Beach. But again, I haven't seen anything about this being looked into any further. This is the kind of case that there is so much to it. There's so much digging to be done, and there's still so much going on. It's just so fascinating. So I might end up doing a follow-up to this video at a later date, but we'll see how this goes for now. So Cleland agreed and believed that the poisoning was the reason for this man's heart failure. He believed that he was poisoned elsewhere and brought back to where his body was left, because the police could do no more type of pocket would be used for a watch, but on the inside there was a rolled up piece of paper with the words Tamam Shud. Tamam Shud is Persian and it means finished or the end. One of the police reporters at the time had actually seen the script that was found in the man's pocket. The note, it looked to have been torn from a book, and one of the police reporters had recognised the words and the page to have been from a Persian book of poems called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. It's a 12th century book of poems, and that is then where their investigation started to move towards looking into this book and trying to find out more about it. So the book was about living life to the full, and I think it was kind of like acceptance that your life is coming to an end, or acceptance that you've done the best you can with your life before you die. So because of this, the suicide, the idea of suicide kind of came about again. Was this just the end for him? He kept this with him because he had accepted that he was about to die. The police started to actually specifically look into this book and try and find out more about it, try and find the actual copy of the book that this piece of paper had come from. And in July of 1949, a man who gave a false name of Ronald Francis actually came forward. He had said that he had found the book in the glove box of his brother-in-law's car, and when he had questioned his brother-in-law about it, he was told that someone had thrown the book into the backseat of the car while it was parked near Somerton Park Beach, and that this actually happened on the 30th of November of the previous year. So the book that was found, that this man had found and brought forward, was an original. It was a first edition from the 12th century, and it would have been worth an absolute fortune. So the police thought this was completely bizarre that someone would just throw this book into a car. So whenever I first read this, my initial thought was, would it have been him? If the man was actually had planned to take his own life, would he have torn this piece of paper out? This is the end, finished, maybe being a little bit emotional or something. And obviously, if he knew he was going to die, he wouldn't have really cared what would have happened with the book. So did he throw it in on the way back to the beach? But then there is also then the question, could it have been the person who poisoned him? They also actually found that this book was never reported missing. So no one had ever said that it was missing, so it was intentionally thrown in there. It wasn't as if someone had stolen this book and then disposed of it. Whoever had put the book into the car must have owned it. Either the man who died owned it, or somebody else who was involved in his death owned this book. On looking into this book even more, the police found on the back page of the book, someone had written a phone number into the back page. They also found indents from writing in the back of the book, as if someone had been writing while leaning on the back hardback page. And all of these indents, the 5 lines, they looked a bit like gibberish. They were just random letters kind of put together on lines. So the first thing that they did was trace this phone number that was in the back page. was kept out of the papers as long as she was kept a secret, kind of. So they had taken her to the morgue to have a look at the plaster cast that was made up of the man's face, and the police officer that was with her had noticed it was an extremely odd reaction that she had. So Jessica Thompson completely denied any knowledge of the man. She said she didn't know who he was, she had never met him in her life. But whenever she went to the morgue to look at the plaster cast, supposedly it looked as though she might faint or be sick. She was quite shocked. And the way they had kind of said it was that she was a nurse and she had been in morgues, possibly been in morgues before. She would have seen quite a lot, especially during the war. So why would she have been shocked if she didn't know who the man was? So she also had said that the book that they had, she had previously had a copy of the book, but that she had given it to a man called Alfred Boxall during the war. She didn't give any further detail on their relationship or where he was now, how they knew each other, and the police had started to maybe think that the man that was found on the beach could have been Boxall and she was just maybe not letting on. But they looked into it and they actually did find the real Alfred Boxall, and he was alive. He was working as a bus maintenance man and he still had his copy of the book. So that kind of died out a little bit because they didn't really have any more to go on with that. So that's kind of the actual story so far. That's what happened from the time the body was found up until kind of their investigation went really cold. From then there have been a number of different theories, and I'm going to read them all to you now. I have all of my notes down here and I'm sorry, I know I keep looking down. I'm just really nervous about this video. I'm trying to be conscious of the situation, but yeah. So one of the theories was that this man could have been a spy. The belief also is that Jessica Thompson may have been a spy, and that is how she knew the man, and she recognised him when she saw the plaster cast, but she couldn't say anything because she had to keep her identity and his identity a secret. So Jessica's daughter, Kate Thompson, actually also believed that Jessica may have been a spy. Jessica had actually once made a comment, maybe I think it was either in front of her kids or to them. She had made reference to knowing the man, but she didn't go into any further detail. She had also claimed that she was fluent in Russian, and Kate knew about this, but she never knew where her mother had learnt this, or there was no Russian in the family as far as she was aware, so she didn't know why or how this had happened. And other people in the family also actually believed that Jessica may have been having an affair with the man, and that's partly why she didn't say anything. Jessica's first son is called Robin. Robin was born the year before the man's body was found, so it's actually believed that Robin may have been the son of the Somerton man. Jessica died in 2007 and no one had got any more facts from her. She hadn't given anything else away. So all of the truth from Jessica's point of view between the photograph and the Somerton man. They had found a similar ear shape, a mole that was in a similar kind of place. A lot of people don't agree with this, and it actually turned out that H.C. Reynolds had died in 1953. So, again, that was another kind of, I think so many people wanted to find out more about this man and who he was, what had happened, that people's imaginations just started going wild. This one is very interesting and it's still ongoing. A man called Professor Derek Abbott had started investigating on his own. He works in the University of Adelaide. He had set up a team to look into the letters that were on the back page of the book. It's believed that all of these letters may have been in code, and he had a designated team that was set up to try and crack this code. So far, they haven't had any joy because supposedly, in order to crack the code, they need the original first edition of this 12th century book. But after the police's investigation kind of went on for a while, I believe that the book may have been destroyed. So that side of the investigation is kind of dying out a little bit because they can't really get any further. But he is also using DNA to carry out a separate investigation. He's trying to find the man's identity using DNA. So, in 2017, Abbott had put in a request for the man's body to be exhumed. This is to extract DNA because he truly believes that if he can extract DNA from this man, he may be able to find out who he is. So, the original request it was not approved, and he went on and kind of tried to look into different things, and on the plaster cast that was taken of the man, he actually found a number of different hairs from the man that had transferred to the plaster. He analysed the DNA through the hair, and because of the progression in its investigation, the request for exhuming the man's body was actually approved. This all happened, I think it was at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and then the pandemic hit and everything went on hold. But in May of 2021, the body was exhumed. He was, I think they had to do, the exhumation had to be quite careful because his body had been buried for so long. They had to use brushes, and once his body had been removed, placed into a new coffin and taken away. So in South Australia, there is actually an operation, or it's an investigation called Operation Persevere, and this is for the whole of South Australia. They are trying to put names to unidentified people, and I think because of this operation, that is why the exhumation then was approved. But even more interesting, Derek Abbott believes that his wife, who is Rachel Egan, who is the birth daughter of Robin Thompson, he believes that her DNA, if he matches it to the Somerton man's, they may find that the DNA matches, and if that's the case, it's one step closer to finding out who this man is. With so much uncertainty because of the pandemic, it could take months, it could take years before they kind of go any further forward with this. But I think it's quite interesting because Rachel Egan her birth father was Robin Thompson, but she had been put up for adoption, and she had been adopted into a new family. But she happened to meet and marry the man who is investigating investigating her possible grandfather. Yeah. It's bizarre. I just find the whole thing so fascinating, and again, because there is so much going on at the minute, it may be a case that I can bring some more information to you. So far that is kind of the end. There is always the spy theory, and was he a spy, wasn't he a spy? Did he take his own life? Was he killed? So that is the end of the story so far. I find this absolutely fascinating, and I don't know, I would love to know what everybody else thinks about it, and any other theories that are out there or that you might have. There's going to be so much more to this, and I can't wait to see what comes of all of the investigations and the DNA tests. So if I see any more, I will definitely update you. But yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed